Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence to remember our troops abroad and their families here at home, and also the passing of Tracy Orsi. She was the owner of Raging Cajun here in Belmar. Thank you. So the council would please join me off the dais for special presentation. I'm ready for the snow. So we're going to have a special presentation from three entities. Two of them, or one of them you're very familiar with, one of them you're somewhat familiar with, and one of them maybe you do. I'd like to explain why we're doing this. And I'd like two moms from the families that are going to be benefiting from this to come up. So if Teresa and Kristen. Sorry, can you come up forward real fast? So this coming Thursday at 11 o'clock in front of, right here, yeah, go in the middle. In front of, again, this is Krista, this is Teresa. In front of Teresa's house, her house is 1002 14th Avenue, 1002 14th Avenue. It's kind of a weird spot. It's where 14th Avenue, there's no through. It's just kind of between L Street and K Street. It's very quiet, excellent neighborhood, and she got destroyed by Sandy. A lot of people think of Sandy hitting people up by the beachfront. Well, it did a lot of damage to people who were by the marina as well, destroyed her house. Krista lives on 8th Avenue, again, far from the beach, but because of the lake, her house was flooded as well. After Sandy, we had well over 2,000 families displaced. But after days, weeks, months, everyone came home. Today, we still have some people that don't have their second home repaired, their vacation home. Some people who don't have their investment properties redone and may sell them. But you're looking at the last two families in Belmar that aren't back home yet. On Thursday, when we do this event, it's going to be 830 days since Sandy. And we decided that, when you look at the process they've gone through, whether it's state dollars, federal dollars, insurance dollars, fighting with insurance companies, fighting with the state, fighting with just about anyone and everyone to get the resources to go back home again, we can either continue fighting or we can just get it done. So we've met with their contractors, we looked at their financial situation of what they have in the bank, and it's a lot of the times it's weird bureaucratic stuff. So in Teresa's case, she got insurance money, it's in a bank account, Bank of America, she has $60,000 there, but Bank of America won't release that money until she's further along, showing that it's actually going to get completed. Well, she can't get further along, she can't get completed until she has the money to pay the contractor to do the work. Now, coming from the banking world, it makes sense what the bank is doing. If you talk to contractors, it makes sense to them as well. But it still doesn't get her back home. So when we looked at both their situations, talked with them about what their needs were, each one of them, it's a lot of money, each one of them is short $100,000. So obviously simple math, it's $200,000. So what we're going to announce on Thursday at 11 o'clock is a campaign called Home by Some. And the idea is we're going to get both of these families, represented by Krista and Teresa, back in their home by June 1. And we have some representatives here today that are sort of kicking that off that I wanted to just recognize. So I'd like Larry to come up. He's from the Jersey Shore Chamber of Commerce. They have a check for $4,250. Why don't you tell us, some folks may not be familiar with the organization. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
All right, we're the Jersey Shore Chamber of Commerce, formerly the Southern Monmouth Chamber of Commerce. This past year, we did a rebranding of our name because we felt it was better suited because we cover the Jersey Shore towns. That's what we encompass as a chamber. So the rebranding went very well. We've got a lot of positive feedback. And we were approached by another group which was doing this Waves of Support, which was to raise money for different entities. Some of it went to humanity, some of it went to food banks and things like that. And we chose Belmar, since they're dear to us as a chamber, to donate our portion of the money. So they raised, I think, roughly $42,000, and they split it among 10 organizations. So we were the recipient of $4,250, which were passed along to Belmar and to Home by Summer. So.
That is one big check, Larry.
Got it, thank you.
I wish the amount was 200,000, so I'd bail you out totally, but.
Thank you. Listen, all this is, it all adds up, so we're going to continue to plug away. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I want to mention, Adam, thank you very much for coming.
Oh, Mayor, sorry I'm late. Didn't mean to walk in.
Pleasure to have you here with us. Also want to bring up Nick Dakotas from Mazer Engineering. They're our engineer here in town. I talked to Ron Nowak, who's at Mazer Engineering. I explained to him the situation. He said, where do I write my $5,000 check? So Nick's here to present a $5,000 check as well. So Krista and Teresa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Nick is also now officially our town engineer as well.
Yeah.
Hold up your little check.
Hold up.
You can write on the backside.
There you go, thank you. And lastly, and this was a phone call that I made. I was probably about 30 seconds into what I was talking about. I was cut off, and he said, "Where do I bring the check?" And that's Bill Ledecky from DJs. I know I say it ad nauseum, but there's no better corporate citizen in Belmar than DJs.
Thank you.
So Bill, Teresa, and Kristen. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that a lot.
I know you're gonna love it.
Come on, I just, I can hold up your DJs, Jen.
We're in a great shirt.
Thank you so much.
All right.
So we're at $14,250, which is about 7.5% of the way there. And I can tell you, just talking with other folks, we probably have commitments in already. We don't have the checks yet, but commitments in for another 15 to get us to 30. And then Barry the Pep, who's a developer in town, he's the one building the property across from Strollo's, and he also built the property of houses Stay Gold. He owns a company called Coastal Kitchens, do phenomenal kitchen work. They're going to donate 2 kitchens. And if anyone's ever done their kitchen, there's nothing more expensive than your kitchen, right? So we're estimating that value somewhere around $15,000 total. So we're all on our way. And again, if you can spread the word far and wide, we'd like to have as many people there as possible to join us on this Thursday. Again, this Thursday at 11 o'clock at 1002 14th Avenue. And also, the partner in this with us that's really making a big difference is the St. Vincent de Paul Society of St. Rose. They do a tremendous amount of work. And they're, we need a partnership like this to raise this much money in a short amount of time because they're a 501c3 nonprofit. So to get larger chunks of money from foundations, they can only give to other 501c3s. They couldn't give to the town. They couldn't give to your contractors. They can't give to your families. But they can give to other 501c3s. So we're partnering together on this. And another important thing to note is as the money comes in, it's going to be dispersed. So we're not going to wait till we get to 200,000. We got $14,000 in. We're going to start spending that. When I say spending it, we're gonna give it to the contractor so that they can get things moving. They can buy the materials and they can start to get to work. Now also on Thursday, both Krista and Teresa are gonna stand in front of cameras and stand in front of the press and give their stories. Because I think once people hear about their stories and how compelling they are, they're gonna open up their hearts and their wallets. And I think we will get to that large sum. Again, it's a lot of money. And the other thing I would tell you all, and I'm gonna repeat myself, and you've heard me say it before, you know it better than I do, that there's no plan B. There's no more federal money, there's no more state money, there's no more money, there's no rich uncles coming to save Krista and her family. There's just us. And when you look at it that way, we can't fail. Because God forbid something like that happened, it's not that they're not getting home this summer, they're not gonna get home. So it's really up to us as a community to pull together and make this a possibility. And I'm very confident we can get that done.
Here.
So, and if you could, please give a round to both Teresa. They don't want to speak tonight, but come Thursday, they'll have.
Thank
Thank you. I want to say thank you. And I want to say thanks to Matt for even thinking about it and coming up with the whole idea. Like that means the world that you're working on it.
Well, we do commit, right? We committed that we're not going to rest until everyone's home.
We've heard that before.
And we got two families that still aren't home, so that's our commitment to you as well. Me as the mayor of the community, I'm going to commit the community on behalf of this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, where do you bring the checks to?
We already have something set up online. So if you go to belmar.com, there's an icon that says Home by Summer. You can go on there, go on PayPal, and contribute that way. Or you can bring a check anytime to Borough Hall. We opened up the account, just so you know, at Central Jersey Bank. They've been great, right? They're waiving all the fees and things like that. So it's really a community-based endeavor that, it's important. It's also important for us to set a deadline. So June 1st is our deadline. Unfortunately, if you remember going back to school, if you didn't have a test, you weren't studying that night. If you set a deadline, then you have a goal and it's achievable and it's measurable. If we just leave it open-ended, it won't work. And I'll tell you another thing that I found out recently, talking with folks in other towns. And I'm not going to mention a town, but there are towns where people have they've given up. They've given up going back home. I want to say it, but they see that there's no light in the tunnel. For Teresa and Krista's family, we have to be that light in the tunnel for them. They're not giving up, they're not quitting, so we can't quit either. But you're going to hear probably more and more families in the future in those hard-hit towns that just, they have no light at the end of the tunnel to get back home. All right, so thank you all very much, Larry.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you. No. Next on our agenda is sidewalk assessments. If you remember last council meeting, we talked about the condition of sidewalks, which are now covered in snow and ice. But one of the folks in town who had emailed me, I think emailed all of us, was Tim McCory, who spent a lot of time on this subject, even during the summer. I believe we spoke a little bit. So I asked him to come to sort of give us his perspective on it. He's done probably more research on sidewalks, certainly more than I have, and possibly anyone else. So Tim, if you can come on up and just give us your presentation.
Sorry, spaghetti. How's that? Is that all right?
Yes, hi, I'm Tim McCory. I live at 417 12th Avenue, and Happy New Year. And I want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight, or inviting me. I don't know how much research actually I've done on sidewalks, but I've done enough walking on our sidewalks that from time to time, people will actually stop who I know and say, Tim, don't you have a car? So I very much like to walk. I think that to some extent we are kind of a victim of our own success in that we have this gorgeous, world-class, brand-new boardwalk. And it's a little bit like what you mentioned earlier, Matt, about when you renovate your kitchen. You know, you have this beautiful, wonderful kitchen, and all of a sudden it kind of makes the rest of your house look bad. And now you gotta go back and fix the rest of your house. So I thought if you were nice enough to invite me here, the least I could do is bring a little show and tell. We have this great boardwalk, and here is a piece of our 12th Avenue sidewalk. This is not the piece where I almost fell a couple weeks ago. This is somewhere else. Location not to be specifically identified because I know that you're launching a town-wide program, so I'm sure that it's ultimately going to get fixed. But I was so happy to hear your remarks at the inauguration and the article in the Coast-Star that there's now going to be a sidewalk improvement program, because to me, the sidewalk is kind of a symbol of the partnership between the town and the individual property owner. You know, and in a way you can sort of assess the state of the union by looking at the conditions of the sidewalks in town. And what surprises me, doing as much walking as I do, is that some of our worst sidewalks are actually in front of some of our nicest houses. So it's not always a measure of, well, you know, we've got families in distress that just, they have to choose between paying the mortgage and fixing their sidewalk. Because I understand completely that even though the sidewalk is not on your property, we have an ordinance that says it is your responsibility to maintain it. So it is kind of a partnership. It's sort of a handshake between the individual property owner and the town. So to me, you can sort of tell a lot by a town by walking around and see, well, what kind of shape are the sidewalks in. And I think it's going to be a great thing when we, through this program, bring our sidewalks up to the same level of repair that our boardwalk is, so that we have a truly walkable town, because this really is a health and safety issue. People don't have to join a gym. You can get out and walk on our beach, and it's just a great town to walk in. So to make all of our sidewalks safe so that we don't have parents and grandparents and kids walking in the street to get their kids to school, as I've seen year-round, will be a wonderful thing. I think that also we should try to incorporate a remedy for folks who have sump pumps that currently drain across the sidewalk that create a slipping hazard when it freezes in the winter. We also have a couple of businesses in town that have roof drains that discharge across the sidewalk that right now, obviously this time of year, are creating some serious hazards. And I understand that everybody's got bills to pay. So you have to figure out a strategy, how can we kind of help them, put a pipe under the sidewalk or something like that. So I just want to say that I think it's a great thing that this program is now underway, and I look forward to seeing it completed. Thank you very much.
Real fast, question for Ed. One of the things that Tim mentioned was, an ordinance we have that says, your sidewalk is your responsibility when it is public. Is that standard throughout the whole state?
Yes.
Is that, okay. Can you sort of explain that? It's a right of way for the town, or?
I honestly don't know whether it's considered a right of way or not, but it's standard practice in every municipality that I know of, that even though the sidewalk and the property adjacent to the sidewalk is not the property owner's, it's your responsibility to maintain that sidewalk, for example, snow and ice and that sort of thing.
Does that include the curb? My sidewalks, my curb is in bad shape. Is it, are they the same?
No, it doesn't include you're talking about the actual concrete curb?
Correct.
No, it
Got it.
doesn't include that.
Okay.
But sometimes between the sidewalk and the curb is a little grass strip.
Skirt.
Yeah, that's not the property owners, it's the town's.
But the property owner is responsible for it,
Right.
just like Council President McGovern talks about how people are responsible for the trees,
Right.
even though it's in the public's area. But the curbs themselves are also the responsibility of the homeowner?
No,
Okay.
the
Just
actual
sidewalks.
concrete curb is the town's responsibility.
Okay.
I know my insurance company thinks the sidewalk is my responsibility.
Yeah, of course.
That's the other thing, too.
Let's repair the sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if someone, and correct me if I'm wrong, but someone slips and falls on your sidewalk,
You know, it's not quite that clear, unfortunately. You do have to maintain the sidewalk, but I think there's a state statute which provides an exception, or it's case law, which provides that there's an exception for residential sidewalks. In other words, residential sidewalks are different than commercial sidewalks. So, I can't answer that with 100% certainty. I can get back to you on it. As I sit here, I can't. It's not the simple issue that it presents itself to.
Gotcha. And one of the things that, I don't think we really mentioned a whole lot, when we do talk about the sidewalk improvement program, it is completely voluntary. That said, it's the responsibility of the homeowner to maintain that sidewalk. So if you know your sidewalk's got problems, or we tell you your sidewalk's got problems, and you choose not to be part of the voluntary program, then you gotta understand that you have to fix it yourself. If you don't fix it yourself, well, then you're subject to getting tickets for not properly maintaining your property. So I would encourage everyone to participate in the voluntary program, because again, if there's 1,000 sidewalks, where you get much better pricing per unit than if you do it by yourself. And if you don't do it by yourself, just like not shoveling the snow on your sidewalk, you're subject to getting fined. And you know, we may not have enforced those ordinances on the books in the past, but once we go through this program, I'm telling you, we're done. Much like shoveling snow. So, any other questions for Tim?
Well, Tim, what other kind of sidewalks are there besides cement? In other words, if we go into this program,
As you've been walking around.
Yes, but
I know there's slate, there's brick, there's cement. I guess people have gone to pavers recently.
yes, yeah, that pretty much covers it. I can't think of anything other than what you just said. Concrete, slate, pavers.
Like stamped concrete.
Yeah, those you generally see in driveways, and of course, they will continue across to the street. I mean, you know, this is kind of an opportunity for us to experiment a little bit too. There are more, there have been recent developments in materials that are less impervious, that actually allow some water to drain through, so that they would be less likely to freeze, and they also, you know, contribute to our overall desire to discharge less water to our stormwater system. You know, so there are permeable pavers and different kinds of things that we can do. But, you know, the main thing is just to have, you know, a walkable surface, so that, you know, people in wheelchairs, people in strollers, little kids running down the street, it's just safe for everybody.
I'm curious, of those 4 kinds of sidewalks, which one seems to hold up the best? And which ones hold up the worst? Which ones are the worst
Well,
in general?
the thing is that, ironically, I mean, in my own opinion, which has to do with me being an architect as well, natural materials always seem to be the more durable, which is why a lot of our slate sidewalks, which is sort of like a historic Belmar sidewalk, they last forever, except for the fact that when they move as an entire piece of sidewalk for a tree or for whatever, you know, and that sort of thing. You know, and so one, you know, really good example of a new sidewalk that I think was really done well is Mary Gravizone's. You know, which is concrete, but it was notched to work around a very big tree. There's a change in grade, so, you know, concrete is very malleable that way. You know, you can, you know, but
And concrete's probably the cheapest, right?
probably so.
For concrete.
I would think, yeah. I mean, I have a neighbor that did a beautiful job with pavers. I mean, it's like you want to take a picture of this thing, but you know, that's the way they do things. You know, I think it's their choice to do it that way. It's probably the nicest sidewalk in town, you know, but that was their choice to do it that way.
Right. And we're obviously, we're not going to add expenses to people, so we'll
No.
try, whatever we go out to bid, we're going to do it at the safest, most, and lowest possible cost.
And the pavers, is there a tree nearby, a street tree?
By the new,
No, that really wasn't an issue at this particular location.
Because I guess a lot of our sidewalks are being affected by the roots of the street trees.
Yes.
Have you noticed, or what do you feel on the pavers? And of course, the slate does rise more, or the cement.
Yeah, the example that I just mentioned, Mary Graveson's, is concrete goes by a big, I think it's, big old sycamore trees on 12th Avenue. And the mason was just, he was smart enough to just notch the sidewalk around the tree to give it, some room. Now that's it. The new sidewalk hasn't gone through a winter with, it's going through a winter now. But it also, you can see, the sidewalk actually changes elevation. It goes up gently, comes back down, which you can do when you have a good mason working at a specific location. Whereas a big piece of slate, you can't do that with. You can also make those adjustments with pavers. One of the things with pavers, though, is they sometimes tend to get a little slippery, too. So with concrete, you can put a little bit more of a coarse aggregate in there that makes it a little bit less slippery. So I would think it may be that all things considered, concrete is probably the best bet.
I've been other places where I've seen where they've gone around the tree, and it does rise and fall over the.
Right, which you can do either with pavers, because it's a small unit, you can adjust each one, or you can just do a nice kind of smooth pour of the concrete.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your work on this. Is that theft?
I have to bring this back.
It wasn't broken, he broke it to bring it.
Thank you. We'll do stormwater after, or snowstorm afterwards. But let's, since we have Ed with us, let's have Ed come up. He is the chairman of the planning board, and he also was the chair of the redevelopment committee, that advisory committee that looked at, the existing redevelopment plan, what's going on now, what's going on in town, and made suggestions. And we're not going to act on it tonight, but just to get an idea, an overview of the executive summary that he put together for us. So, Ed?
Thank you, Matt. How you know, Mayor and Council passed a resolution last year, April 1st, 2014, designating a committee, an 11-member committee for the Seaport Redevelopment Advisory Committee. With the intent of taking a look at the existing redevelopment plan and making whatever changes we felt were needed. We met on about 12 or 13 different occasions, since they beginning sometime in the middle of April. Every other meeting was open to the public. There was never a big turnout. However, when there was people in public there, we took advantage of any suggestions they might have. We're open for any questions you might have, either now or in the future. I would like to point out, though, two people, although every person in the, on the committee contributed equally, and several members of the committee stepped forward to do the physical writing of the 8 different sections. I would like to acknowledge Kelly Williams, who we appointed to be our secretary. She did a fantastic job arranging the meetings. She came to almost every meeting, took notes. The very next day, she emailed those meeting minutes out to all the committee members. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Krista, who was here just a few minutes ago, who actually put the entire report together. She took all these sections that different individual committee members wrote, put it all together, put the pictures together, and made it the final report. So I would like to acknowledge that.
That's why Kelly's our employee of the month this year. You can see her picture on the Route 35 sign. One of the things, I saw a couple of recommendations, and I thought it was kind of interesting the way you guys broke down neighborhoods. The Seaport neighborhood, Central Business, Sunset Heights, and the Marina neighborhoods. Essentially taking, the idea would be to take the redevelopment zone and expand it. Instead of right now it stops at 8th Avenue, you're taking it all the way to 16th. Which I think when you take out a master redeveloper, when you take out eminent domain, using eminent domain to take people's properties, you know, really it should be advantageous to those property owners. And, you know, it looks like everything is, your idea is to make things, you know, voluntary. So, you know, to encourage people to develop. And at the same time though, for those properties that, I don't want to say are dilapidated, but certainly don't look as they should on our Main Street, to really start cracking down and doing a better job enforcing the existing codes on the books, and possibly looking to new ones as well. But can you sort of take us through the idea of expanding it down and how you guys came up with, you know, Seaport, Central Business, Sunset Heights I like in particular?
Well, there's a lot more discussion and sometimes a lot of discourse other than what shows up in this report. We spent a lot of time, I can tell you, on the parking issue. Each meeting, we tried to address one portion or one section of the report. Parking took up, I would say, 2.5 nights of meetings, which I would say we probably had about 5 or 6 hours total of parking. How we broke up the sections, some of it followed the old redevelopment plan, and then we added our own ideas, again, with the adding of down to 16th Avenue. We tried to label some of the neighborhoods. As you can see, the area from 11 to 16 that you call the Sunset Heights neighborhood. I don't remember which committee member came up with that report, but it kind of stuck, and we left it in there. But we thought that these sections were vital, that we could address individually. And so that's how we came up with it. We thought they were just different sections of town that needed our attention.
And you're, you know, I think it's pretty astute because we are a small town, but, you know, the idea of breaking it down even smaller makes a lot of sense. And if you look at other towns around us that have nice main streets, they're small. You know, Manasquan is 2 blocks, Spring Oaks, 3 blocks. So ours is pretty long and then pretty wide when you're taking Marine into account.
One of the other things I'd like to point out, Mayor, is that we didn't concentrate so much. We learned early on that we didn't want to concentrate so much on new building in town. We felt that though any new development coming up had enough oversight and examination. First of all, when you looked at the existing redevelopment plan, plus whatever ideas we add after this point, we had that oversight. We had the mayor and council's oversight. You had the TDRC oversight, and then you had the planning board oversight. So we didn't concentrate so much on new structure. What we did concentrate on is existing structures and how to bring them up architecturally and aesthetically more pleasing. So that was our main focus. And how to make the downtown more walkable, by a number of ideas. If you look at section, I believe it was section 5, streetscape, just to make the town more inviting by creating a variety of different types of shops, adding benches in town, all things of this nature. Too much to go into right here, but just to get people to come into the town. Again, with parking, we didn't want to jump into recommending parking like as a structure. So we wanted to see what we could do in existing areas throughout the town, little portions of town east of Main Street, and other sections that you'll see in the report. We thought once that was accomplished, once people started coming to the town, then long-range plan would be looking to like a parking deck or something like that. And we do make recommendations in the report as to where they should possibly go.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was pretty interesting, we always, when we think of a parking deck, we always think of behind here. But one of the, not necessarily recommendations, but one of the advisory opinions was to take a look at the south side of the Belmar Mall. You know, where you also have a transit component as well, and it's on land that the borough already owns. So, you know, if you put something back here, right, it's going to get usage when we're busy. Put something by the train station, could be used every day, or at least Monday through Friday when people are commuting, and maybe even draw more people.
That lot's empty.
What's that?
That lot's empty.
Right, right. And that's, again, that's another point here that, again, we always talk about behind here, but that may be a good spot to have. Any questions for Mr. Witness?
No, I want a chance to read the report. What I've seen so far is very, very interesting.
I
You can
have-
see how much work you put in.
I have a question. One of the recommendations in there is possibly closing Sixth Avenue here. And I couldn't picture in my mind, reading that, exactly what you had in mind. Can you explain the closing of Sixth between Main and the Railroad
We'll be
and how you're...
Right here.
Right,
Councilwoman.
I knew where, but how are you encompassing that as a parking lot?
This would become a walkway
Oh,
to here.
okay, that's why I
And the
couldn't...
parking, actually, the additional parking you would gain would be on Sixth Avenue.
Okay,
Okay.
that's why,
That's actually in the original plan, and we thought that had a lot of merit, so we kept it in there.
just couldn't picture that one in my mind as I was reading it
Right.
the other day.
So the street itself could be
The
allowed?
street itself would just go into the parking lot,
Correct.
Okay.
and you'd be able to pick up spaces there.
Okay, thank you.
Now, would you be okay if, I don't think the council really had a chance to fully digest the report, but I wanted you to come here because you guys did such work on it. But would you be okay coming back, once we do have, you know, a better understanding of what you guys are looking for, in case we do have any more questions? Because like you said, you come up with, you know, you didn't want to write a 500-page report, but, you know, the details are probably more in your head than they are on the paper.
Right.
Some of the stuff. So you guys-
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Just one minute. Did they discuss how big a parking garage we might look at, or two smaller ones? And what's
Well,
the expense of a?
We looked at two. One at the original location by the old Elk area, and also one by the Family Dollar, or by the train stations, more in keeping with the transit village type thing. I don't remember how many parking spaces we talked about. I think that was something we would leave to see what the demand would be at a later point.
So they didn't come up with a number, like someone throws the map together with, in 10 years, we'll need X amount of parking spaces?
No, we didn't try to figure out those calculations. We didn't go that far.
Because parking garages are pretty expensive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very expensive.
In a lot of instances, the advisory committee didn't try to burden itself with trying to figure out how something would work, how we would do this later in the future, or the financial impact. These were just recommendations. We would deal with that later if we ever got to those points.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Appreciate all your work and time and effort.
Thank you.
so much. I don't know how accurate it is, but I remember when the BBP, we were looking into parking lots and past surveys, et cetera, it was like an estimate that if a lot is built, it's like $22,000 per parking spot because of concrete expenses, labor expenses. So when we say the parking decks are expensive, that gives you an idea.
Yeah, I mean, if you just do quick math, at 20,000 a space, 400 spaces, that's $8 million. So,
You'd have to charge people to park there, correct?
either that, or you'd have to figure out how the merchants who benefit from having something would contribute. So maybe if, you know, one idea was floated past me, which I thought was kind of interesting, was, you know, they have restaurants that will offer free parking. So you come and you give them the ticket, and they validate your ticket with your dinner.
Okay.
So that way, you know, you park in the parking garage, the borough got their money, right? Someone paid for it, but the person paying for it was the one making money off the person going to get the ticket.
Right, because if they had to pay to park there, the person themselves, they wouldn't go there, they could park for free on the street. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that would be a problem. That would be a good way to do it, have the restaurant people, right, okay, I see where you're going.
So, next, no storm response and discussion. What did we want to?
Well, I did just want to take a moment to acknowledge the blizzard that wasn't last week. And for us, it goes in the vein of it's better to be over-prepared than surprised and under-prepared. Public Works did amazing. I think our streets, we recovered extremely quickly, much more quicker than many of our neighboring towns. And that had to do to two factors. One, our Public Works Department, just banging it out and doing a really phenomenal job. But two, the repeated code reds from our mayor with regards to off-the-street parking was extremely helpful. We saw less vehicles on the road during the storm than any storm in most of the memories of the people who've been here for many, many years. That allowed our operation to run smoothly, quickly, cleanly, and I think that's why you saw the clean streets that you saw come Wednesday and Thursday morning. So what a topic I wanted to approach and throw out to all of you, and I've heard this come up a couple of times during my tenure. Right now, that off-the-street parking is done by very strong suggestion coming from your mayor or from somebody delivering the code red. Would the council like to entertain anything in way of ordinance or regulations to provide some enforcement for that and make it extra incentive to get cars off the streets?
One thing I can tell you that I found really bothered me was people with driveways, empty driveways, and cars in front of their house in the street that just didn't move. I can't see, I mean, obviously I don't know the particulars of those situations, but it seems to me that there's just got to be something that just doesn't sit right with me. It just doesn't seem right. It not only does it inconvenience the public works trying to do their job, but it inconveniences those neighbors who can't get the street in front of their house clean because someone won't move their car. I don't know. I mean, I'm not big on, you know, ticket and tow unless it seems appropriate. But I'm curious to see what the rest of the council thinks about that. I know it really bothered me personally.
The caveat I would throw out there for you guys to think about as you discuss this is that you could put qualifications around it, where this ordinance would come into effect when a state of emergency is declared. It wouldn't necessarily, I mean, as much as Mike's probably shooting darts at me, it would be helpful to have it in any snow event. But if you want to kind of temper it and balance your approach, you could suggest that when it is a large event, such as what we faced last week, there was a state of emergency declared in the state of New Jersey. It would have been helpful to maybe have an ordinance at our disposal to assist us with the effort.
But that wouldn't be it wouldn't stop the announcements, the reminders, because I think that they were huge.
Yeah, I think it would be part of the announcements, just, and again, Director Campbell wants to chime on this, so please feel free, Director. It's just kind of common sense that if all the cars are off the streets, these guys plow curb to curb. And I remember driving down Main Street, looking down 7th Avenue, and there were no cars on 7th, none. I'm like, that's gonna be great. I drove down, 13th, 11th, and there were cars there. I'm like, this is not gonna be nearly as good as 7th. And I'm sure people are gonna complain that, this north end of town got their streets plowed rather than the southern end of town. Well, the reason is because the people on these streets got their cars off. And like Tom said, it's not necessarily, like Councilman Brennan said, it's not necessarily people who don't have a place to go. And there was one person on 12th Avenue who told me that, yeah, their neighbor, who's a contractor, had the car in the street, and he took the windshield wipers, put them up, because he wasn't moving.
Right.
And his driveway was empty. But he didn't want to block his car in with his truck. So that's why the second message was, listen, if we need some, right now, it's almost like self-policing, right? Where one neighbor has to go to another neighbor, hey, move your car into your driveway so that the Department of Public Works can come down and plow everything. And I think what Colleen's suggesting is, instead of the message being, please do this, or your car may get damaged by a plow or something like that, trying to incentivize people, that if we say at the same time, and just so you know, because of this state of emergency, if you don't move your car, you are subject to X amount of a fine. And maybe, that would motivate people more and say, listen, you know what, I'd rather have my truck on the street. Is it worth paying, I don't know, $80 to have my truck on the street overnight? You know what? It's not worth it for me. I'll just put it on my driveway. So I don't know if we're at the state where we would necessarily tow them. The only time we were talking about towing was after Sandy. That was clearing debris. But I think that having that in the code red, being able to say something like that, I think it gives a little bit more emphasis emphasis for people to move their car off the street, if that makes sense. And you know, I know that we did a code red about clearing off sidewalks, and we gave people extra time to do it, and I can tell you, our code enforcement went out, and he wrote 61?
71 tickets.
Wrote 71 tickets for people who didn't clean their sidewalk off. And this wasn't after 24 hours, it wasn't after 48 hours, it was beyond that. And it was after doing code reds. Hopefully, in the future, it's gonna motivate people to clean off their sidewalks now that they got a ticket for it.
Is this past one?
Yeah, the vast majority, just for council's own notification, about 99% of those were for out-of-town addresses, actually, that was their second problem.
Right, and look, if you have a second home here, you know, I'm sure that, not sure, but, you know, they maintain it in the summer, right? Maybe they have a landscaper, you know, if it's important for you to maintain your property when you're here, it's equally as important for you to maintain your property when you're not here, particularly your sidewalk, where it's a public area. So, you know, there are towns that don't have sidewalks, that you don't have to maintain. You know, if you don't want to maintain your sidewalk, you know, this is not the town for you. You have to maintain your sidewalk so people can walk down the sidewalk. Yeah, Mike?
Real quick with the storm the other night with people moving their cars. First, we wanted to thank the mayor, council, and Colleen for having the code red put out. It did make our life much easier to open up the streets. I would also like to thank the people that did cooperate, again, for the same reasons. For the people that don't cooperate, there's a couple of things to think about. Number one, we can't get within one house. If there's a car in front of 112, we can't get to 110 or the next house on the opposite side because we have to then curve around it. So now you're screwing your two neighbors. Then the problem is when you do finally move tomorrow, we're cleaning up again. The snow that is left there because you did not move your car is now going to get pushed to your neighbors after he's already dug out everything and had everything squared away. It's going to get him dug again, so you're going to hit him again. And then the most, you know, the whole point for the pocket is we can do it faster, cheaper, and also the emergency services can get through. If you look at 13th Avenue, just because you mentioned that one, when they're not moving their cars, we can only do a single lane down there. A fire truck, police vehicles, things like that have a real tough time getting through in a storm event in case, God forbid, someone does need emergency services. So again, there's a lot of salient over points that can be made to do this, not only for ease for us, but if we can do it quicker, it's less taxpayers' money, you know, that you're paying for the storm. It's helping you with emergency services, and it's good neighbor policy, not only for yourself, but again, to come out and do that. When you don't do it, we're going to come by and plow 2 or 3 times to finally get it clean, you know, in the next day or two, which has normally been the practice. If you're getting it off, we're doing it one time, so you dig out your driveway one time, and you go back. Just as a bonus again, we did over 100 driveways when we were driving the next day. If we plowed somebody in, we saw somebody out there, we went in, we backplowed them, we backbladed them, and we pulled it all out for them and then moved that snow again. So again, if we could help, we were, because we were ahead of the curve. We were there, we weren't chasing the ball, we were ahead of it, so we were able to help people again. So again, there's a lot of bonuses for doing it. I know Colleen and you may not want to go as quickly as I do. I do want to go with when it snows. In fact, if somebody in July drops a snow cone, I would like to have the cars empty. That being said, I would like to have the snow, you know, again, whenever you decide, whatever the parameters would be, but it is very, very helpful, and I think it's going to save taxpayer money, and it's also going to help with emergency services and good neighbor policy if we do have the cars moved off the street. You can see the difference between the storm the other day and then the quick storm we had last night or the night before. It was quick. We got it cleaned up quick. We did a good job. The guys are great workers, but it wasn't as clean as it was when the cars were off the street. We had to go back the next day and spend time when we should be doing other things for the town and cleaning up the storm again for a second time. It's a waste of money.
It's similar but not as important, but when they do the street sweeper other times of the year, like we always move our cars
You're
because
exactly
it does such a
right.
great job. And we have neighbors that could park in front of our house.
And then we can't get yours? Exactly right.
Unfortunately, our curb area is not.
And we do have ordinances for that, but again, I'm fortunate at that time of year, the police have so much to do.
Mhm.
Are we chasing, you know, street sweeper tickets and stuff?
Yeah.
Again, that's a great point to bring up maybe in the spring or summer, it's already there. So how do you want to enforce it? You know, certainly can talk to the chief, I know they've always been cooperative, but I'll start with this one, I'll take baby steps and I'll take the snow right now.
Snow cone in the summer, that's the quote of the year so far, Director Campbell. And I would tell you too, and you know, if you notice, you know, we got snow last night. You know, the roads were pretty slick this morning, you noticed. So, you know, the ordinances we're talking about, and when we do code red, we're doing them because we're being told there's gonna be severe weather. Not an inch of snow, not 2 inches of snow. You know, we were being told we're gonna anywhere from 20 to 30 inches. You know, I know that, you know, Governor Christie took heat, I know that Governor Cuomo took heat, and Mayor de Blasio took heat in New York for their actions. I thought they all did the right thing, you know? And I'll tell you, I talked to one JCP&L person last week, and he said that, and I didn't think about this, and maybe you didn't either, but when you have cars off the roads, you have less poles going down. Less poles go down, less power outages. All kind of makes sense. So when we think about not driving on the road, we think of, well, we don't want to get in the way of plows and assaulters. But at the same time, there's less of a chance of a pole going down. So, you know, I think they all acted appropriately. I think we did as well. I think it showed the next day, on Wednesday, when people were able to get around town. And like Colleen said, when we drove it to some of our neighbors, not to compare, but some of our neighbors were not nearly as good condition as ours were. So, so yeah, I think this is something we should definitely consider. I mean, what do you guys think?
You can go first. I do want to speak.
I don't really think it's a problem if we put an ordinance in. Just as Mike said, it's much cheaper for all of us, all the taxpayers, if his guys work 6 hours as opposed to 12 hours trying to get the streets clean. There are enough houses in town where people are not here in the wintertime. On our little street, we park our cars in the driveways of the summer people. We've talked to those summer people, and it's fine with them. So it's easy to get cars off the streets. And one of the code reds that went out this time mentioned the municipal parking lot and the one at Dempsey Park. We're a small town, so if you have to park something and get yourself home and then 2 or 3 days later go and pick up your car, it's really not that much of an inconvenience. It's not fun, but if it's helping all of us, I think that's a good idea.
And
So
I would comment that both the Borough Lot and Dempsey were underutilized in this last storm, so there's still room in
There's
the
still
lots
room.
for people.
It really, the streets that I saw were incredible, and especially I live close enough to one of those other towns, and compared to how well that town did, when you're looking at bare street compared to ice and snow, it's really a really big difference.
I drove my kids to go sledding, and we were in another town. It was horrific, and ours was clear as could be. And my daughter said, "Do they not have a DPW?"
They don't have a Mike Cam on it,
Of course, that's what I said.
I think the phone call codes were great. I think most of the people got their cars off the road. I know years ago our DPW would plow people in just for them not cooperating. I would say our guys do not do that, right? We would never plow anybody in. But I will say this, we must have scared or frightened some of the people about getting a ticket for their sidewalks for not shoveling it. Because I know yesterday, when it snowed again, I had a neighbor down the block, she's in her mid-70s, she was out shoveling her walk. She shouldn't do that. So I wonder if on those codes, where you have to do your sidewalk, if we could do some type of caveat, a senior citizen, if you are not capable, call us and we'll look to get a volunteer to send to your house. You know, not pay them. And this particular woman would not ask anyone to come and do it. I mean, I know who she is, where she lives, and, you know, when I just felt bad that she was doing it on her own, and probably she got the code and felt as if she had to do it. So,
Well, I think that's a great idea. I would tell you though, if they don't call and let us know, then.
and she would not call you.
No,
I should-
we'll put an announcement.
Yeah.
But we can't.
We can definitely include in the announcement, but I would encourage all of you, if you know of people,
Yeah.
if you know of people in your community and your neighbors, please report them to us. We did it very informally this time, but The spirit is still there.
I'll give you this
Please
person's
do.
address so that you
You know,
know.
I mean, I gave a couple addresses to Mike, you know, where we have folks in town that are, you know, in hospital beds in their own home. You know, we're not looking to hammer these folks, right? I mean, they're folks that we should be helping, and we do.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Sounds like Councilman McGovern has a new shoveling job down the street. That's our volunteer.
Actually, I do help my neighbors out. Mr. Siegel.
Mrs. Smalley, yeah.
Mr. Siegel.
Did you want to say something about that?
No, I was just gonna say, it's funny, I have 3 neighbors across the street as their second homes, and we did theirs. So it's kind of, you know, just bring the neighborhood together. And I also did a Facebook post asking if there were any volunteers to help out with the elderly or anybody capable of shoveling. I did get a huge response, but I did get a sweet little ninth grader who was like, where do I go, when, how can I help? So there are good people out there.
Good. I wanted to compliment Public Works about the job yesterday. I mean, we were planning for the big snow, but I spent an hour and a half yesterday afternoon driving back from Red Bank on the state highway. That was literally a sheet of ice. It was one of the most harrowing things I've done in I don't know how long. I can't tell you what a pleasure it was to get back to Belmar, where you could just drive down the street. It was amazing, and compliments to you and the mayor.
Perfect argument why you don't want the state controlling our beaches.
Well said.
Well said. All right, so let's have our attorneys draft up something for parking during snow emergencies. Next topic is metered parking. Metered parking. So you want to take us through the idea that
Sure. I asked the mayor to place this on your workshop discussion tonight. I wanted, as a part of our annual budgeting process, whether we are starting that process now internally to prepare your budget for the 2015 year, we take a look at all options. Obviously, our number one priority is on keeping the tax rate stable for our residents. So we've had 4 years. We are going for 5th year as per the instructions of Mayor Doherty. And so in the spirit of approaching that task, in addition to telling all departments to hold their personnel cost, their hires at a minimum, and their departmental costs at a minimum, it's not enough. So we're always looking for ways to diversify our revenue, to find more efficiencies. One that I really must bring to you for discussion is the idea of increasing metered parking. Right now, the only pay-for parking that exists within the borough is on the eastern side of Ocean Avenue. And that is attached to our parking utility, and the revenue there is really split between the beach utility and the current fund. As we all know, beachgoers do not limit their parking to the eastern side of Ocean Avenue. They park anywhere they can think of. At times, I mean, everybody has seen this, people park as far west as the marina and walk in. So my suggestion, and what I wanted the council to discuss and start to deliberate, and I'd be happy to go back and research and get more data based on your recommendations. We have several parcels of public land on the west side of Ocean Avenue. There is what sometimes commonly referred to as the Triangle Park, which is more officially called Schroeder Park, which is directly across from Belmar Fishing Club between 1st and 2nd Avenue on Ocean. That is a triangle, three-sided park that would have an availability to do metered parking on all 3 sides. The next parcel that comes to mind is Silver Lake Park. My recommendation there, at least initially when you look at the parking and how people approach the beach, would be to do potentially metered parking on 6th Avenue from Ocean to B, to do metered parking on the west side of Ocean Avenue between 6th and 7th, and then to do potentially metered parking on 7th between Ocean and A. The vast majority of those slots are angled parking on the 6th and 7th Avenue, and then they would be the parallel slots along Ocean Avenue. And then, as it behooves me to mention, this has come up a couple times since our recovery, there is the whole west side of Ocean Avenue. I'm throwing all of these ideas out there to you as things that we talk about internally about how to maximize revenue and diversify the revenue base for taxpayers. This is an option. If we didn't bring it up, I wouldn't quite be doing my duty.
Right. And just my impression, so when you're talking Silver Lake,
Yes.
we're talking Fifth Avenue and Sixth
Oh,
Avenue.
thank you, yeah.
You know, the other thing, and we talked about this, was none of these parking spaces are in front of people's homes, right? They're all in front of public land. And the metered parking would just be during the summer.
Yep.
It would have the same type of kiosk, so it's not individual poles, which can be pretty unattractive. It would be one place with numbered spaces. And typically speaking, these parking spaces are going to be taken up by people who come and visit our town, not necessarily people who reside here. So, you know, when she approached me with this, you know, we went through it, I thought it was a good idea. So I want to see what the other members of the council think as well.
So with Silver Lake, is it spaces around the entire?
No.
No.
It isn't.
It would really be limited to east of B Street.
Okay.
B Street on Fifth Avenue is really where the angled, up to B Street is where the angled parking goes. On Sixth Avenue, there's really angled parking only as far as, there's only parking as far as A.
And the reason not to go all the way around, I'm thinking like Triangle Park. I mean, that would be, is it just because it's too far from the beach?
Yeah, well, when you think about going all the way around Silver Lake, right, you start getting onto,
More residential.
Yeah.
you start getting onto Eighth Avenue, right, then you start going on the west side of the lake. So this is really weird. The people parking in these spaces, really they're going to the beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
The ones on Eighth Avenue, they may be going to that person's house. So, you know, we're sort of erring on the side of caution
Okay.
by keeping it, you know, close to the beach. And the same thing with
Sure.
Shorter Park, you know, that only goes up to, doesn't even go up to 8th Street.
No.
And it's, you know, the only folks that are really parking around there on that island are folks that are coming from out of town.
Any thoughts about making angled parking over by the fishing club, like Schroeder Park is wide in front of there maybe?
Maybe, it's pretty wide there.
It is pretty wide then.
I mean, just kind of
We
looking
could
at the
around
whole
here.
town and seeing if there are areas, because I know that from the boardwalk to Schroeder Park is, again, very wide, and what you get, I don't even know how many cars sit there now, maybe 8? Maybe that could be turned into like 16.
Yeah. We can take a look at it, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, you know what, I can see any place where you have pull-in parking, which is pretty much similar to what we charge for now on the boardwalk. You get more revenue per square foot because you fit the cars in that way. And I also just think it's kind of an easier sell. But, you know, the whole length of Ocean Avenue, I just don't see that. You know, working on the boardwalk in the summertime, I can tell you, particularly on the weekends, the parking on the west side of the street is gone by 9 o'clock in the morning. And there are people there, they're coming, and they park over there so they don't have to pay. And honestly, I'd rather see them take the dollars that they would be paying for parking and spend it at some of the businesses that, I mean, they're not on the beach all day. They're going to buy lunch, they're going to buy breakfast. I'd rather see them put that money, you know, buy a cup of coffee and a donut or something like that. I think the fact that we do have a section of free parking at the beach says something about us as far as being more family-friendly, more willing to accommodate people who might not have, you know, all the money in the world. And I think, like I said, it says something about the quality and character of our town that we offer free parking right down at the beach. Some towns, they'll charge for every single place that's even near the sand, and that's not us.
Any council president?
I know historically, we've always had metered parking on the west side. Matter of fact, Belmar pulled the meters from the west side as soon as the timing, it seems, when those 4 houses between 3rd and 4th Avenue were built. And then all the parking meters on the west, because I used to collect parking meters. I did it for like 18 years. So, and there are about 90 to 100 parking spaces. I like Jen's idea though. 90 or 100 parking spaces on the west side. Now, when we just finished the east side, 2 years ago, we lost about 90 spaces. So I think we're getting back to square one. Going down Silver Lake, which they used to have parking meters there in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, until the Barclays started going, they got pulled there. I think what you're gonna have, the controversy there is if you put it down Silver Lake, you're gonna have to put it down North Boulevard, Lake Como.
There's parallel parking along North Boulevard along the lake there.
So in other words, you're gonna say, what's the difference of,
Is there?
it's parking,
It fills up in the sun.
it's Belmar Park, property.
Right.
So the argument for,
That's parallel to, it's not angled, right?
well, it's parallel, but it doesn't, still, it's a parking space.
Right, and it's along public,
Personally, I like the idea of getting back those 90 meters spaces that we lost as we did Ocean Avenue to bring it up to code. I don't like the idea of going down Fifth Avenue and Sixth Avenue.
Not sure.
I like Jen's idea of diagonal parking there, and that would make up the difference for, it's diagonal parking on that south side, and it's really tight. And as soon as you go into diagonal parking, it's a little bit more difficult for bike riders and stuff like that. I hate riding my bike when there's diagonal parking and someone pulls out. So that's a narrow street that, it's not First Avenue, I don't even know what it's called.
By the White
Well, it's
House.
between
Yeah.
Second and First, yes.
Yeah, so I like reintroducing parking meters on the west side along Ocean Avenue. The other areas I would personally stay away from.
Councilwoman?
Since we lost about 90, it would be nice to get those 90 back, and maybe this year do 90, whether they're down Ocean Avenue or around the farms. And then maybe look at the rest of it, see how it goes this year with our visitors. If we see a lot of complaints, then won't do anything more next year. If everybody kind of accepts it, then we can again discuss going down Ocean Avenue. But do you have any idea which we would get more slots out of if we went straight down Ocean or if we went around the parks?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think we honestly pick up, there's a lot of volume, both around Schroeder and around Silver. Whereas the parallel parking all along Main gets us to 90. So I'm gonna say they're very competitive, if we're gonna compare the two. Yeah.
I would say this year, let's do one or the other. And we can always talk about it this time next year if we want to do the second.
That would engage people's reactions, I guess.
Yeah.
And to be clear, these conversations are gonna fuel an ordinance that I research and write and bring to you probably next meeting or very near in the future. So you have opportunities to keep chewing on this and giving me feedback.
And I'm curious, just within the entire town, and I'd be glad to go out with somebody if needed, but I'd be curious if there's other spots that we could do an angle or add a spot on. I don't know why I always think of Belmar Paint Store, and there's 2 spots in front, and it always looks like there could be one more. I know it's minor, but just something like that, just kind of should have the rest of the town. That's my kids playing basketball, looking for a spot.
All right, so we will have the business administrator compare the two, call the numbers. I'm sure that we'll all get some feedback from folks.
Very curious to see what the
Yeah,
call.
yes.
You know,
Hear what people say.
And again, this would be, just like the meters are now, it would be during the summer, it would be during the day.
But they're not even parking meters, not like.
No, there's
The
kiosks,
kiosks.
right,
Yeah.
Frank?
Yeah.
Kiosk is what they're.
And it would be seasonal and it would be through the normal hours of operation, which is 8 AM to 7 PM during the season.
All right, that's all for for a workshop, unless anyone wants to add anything. That was a long workshop. 7:15.
Good enough, good description.
Working. Any petitions for the bank account? Once again, approval of the minutes.
I approve.
Only here so I don't get fined.
I move that the minutes of the meetings held on January 20th, 2015 be approved as recorded and that a copy thereof be posted on the borough's website.
Second.
Councilwoman Brennan? Yes. Councilwoman Belmar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Nicolak?
Yes.
Mayor Gary?
Yes. Next are reports of council. Council President Brian McGovern, would you like to start us off, please?
How about if I start us off today?
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be quick. The Historical Society is having their grand opening, put it on your calendar, Saturday, April 11th. They're finally going to get back into their museum on 9th Avenue in East Street. All the members of the Historical Society have been working so hard for years, and you're really going to like what they've done. Also,
Brian, do you have a time on that? I'm so sorry.
no, it doesn't have a time,
Okay, just checking.
but
Sort of say the date. Thanks,
1 to 4.
interrupts my report.
It's 1 to 4.
1 to 4? Very good. Also, check the display case outside. There's a very good display this month with the aerial views of Belmar. And if you look at it, they're photographs from many years ago. It's pretty challenging to kind of look at Belmar and see, oh yeah, I know that spot, and that building's still there. What was, you know, so it's right out there in the lobby, and check it out. Very, very interesting. Just want to announce that the word Mabry comes up again. Marina Mabry from Massillon High School, lives in Belmar, was just selected last week High School All-American.
Wow.
You figure there's over 500,000 high school girls playing basketball, and she's in the top 24.
Was your sister also?
Small town of Belmar has 2 McDonald All-American basketball players. Her sister Michaela, who's now a junior at Notre Dame, is the captain of the Notre Dame basketball team.
Wow.
So that's quite an accomplishment. And young Dara Mabry, who's a freshman in her first basketball tournament in high school, was selected to the first team tournament team. So I think in a couple of years, we'll still be talking about the Mabrys. Basically, that's it.
Thank you, Council President. Councilwoman Keon-Blackman.
We all up here received a very nice letter from one of our residents today about our police department. They were notified by him about something, and he thought they did a wonderful job. I won't mention the officers' names. I'm sure that Tom has talked to each one of them. But it's nice to hear a resident, have a resident send us a letter about one or more of our employees. A good letter. The 9/11 trip has been sold out. That was in March, but no more tickets. Walking in the gym, Tuesdays and Thursdays, there were about, Joan, 7 or 8 of us there today. So if you're free on a Tuesday or Thursday, it's great to come and get some exercise in our gym. Senior luncheon is the 11th at 11 a.m. in the gym. And I would also like to compliment everybody in town that cleared their sidewalks. It was very, very great to walk in Belmar and be able to walk on clean sidewalks and not kind of worry about falling and breaking your neck. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Councilman Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our swearing-in ceremony that day in January, I got in a conversation with Pamela Renee. She's a newly elected member of the Neptune City Town Council, and Joe Brillo. And Ms. Renee, one of her main concerns is the dredging of Shark River. And our conversation basically was, we're going to have to think outside the box. Someone's got to come up with a solution that no one's thought of yet. Because the big problem is when you dredge the river, you have to have some place to put the stuff. Lo and behold, a week before last, State Senator Jennifer Beck and along with Tom Arnone and Randy Bishop, also from Neptune, released, had a press release saying that they've come up with this outside-the-box solution. Well, obviously, I was very interested, so I called Senator Beck's office yesterday, spoke to her legislative assistant, Morgan Firmstone, who was very helpful on the phone. Now, I would, of course, wanted to know what the solution they came up with was, and she said they're not at liberty to say at this point because they're actually in final negotiations with several state and federal agencies as to what exactly the plan is. They have their plan, but they can't, because they're going to go out to bid publicly in the future, they'd rather not say yet exactly what's going to happen. But she said very confident, they're getting ready to go to bid soon. So, I mean, the short story is, at whatever time Belmar, the mayor and council, can do anything to aid in this, she's going to notify us and keep us in the loop. Anything we can do, I told her, that could help, we want to do, because obviously dredging that river is very, very important to almost every municipality that has shoreline along the river. It's very important to us. We want to see it done. And I'll let you know, and like I said, I'm very curious. Outside the box could be any kind of thing, and I really want to know what it is they've come up with that they're so optimistic about. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nicolay.
Belmar Recreation bus trip to Phantom of the Opera is Thursday, June 4th, $55 per person. Bus leaves Piano Plaza 10 a.m. and shows at 3 p.m. There's still tickets left. St. Rose High School, they're currently running a coat drive for the National Honor Society and a soup drive by the Student Council. There were 2 girls that scored their 1,000 points this year in basketball, Kat Phipps and Jess Lauro. In addition, Coach Dennis Devaney got his 500th win. Girls basketball team was ranked 24th in the country. Also recently, swimmer Casey Lawson is a shore conference champion and record holder in the 200 freestyle and 200 individual medley, and Monmouth County record holder in the 100 backstroke. Liam Cosgrove is also a shore conference champion in the 200 freestyle and 100 butterfly. We've got a lot of good athletes in this area. Belmar Elementary School is pleased to announce its partnership with Georgia Court University in providing student interns for the School of Education to be placed in K-2 classrooms to work with small groups of students for literacy. It's an excellent opportunity for them to meet their needs as well as their normal day-to-day instruction. I'd like to announce that Jacqueline Litowinski, which many of us know, she's a 5th grader, won the spelling bee against 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So a huge accomplishment, and she'll go on to the regionals at Monmouth University in March. The Belmar Elementary School CHOP contest is Wednesday, February 11th at 6:30. It's the contest where they ask all the students to create types of salads, and then they all get together and make them, and the judges taste them. So I'm going to sign up to be a judge. The adult ESL classes will begin for parents of students Monday, February 2nd at 3 p.m. Is that yesterday? Oops. For more information, contact the main office at Belmar Elementary. Both schools, actually the Grammar, the high school, and Belmar Elementary will be closed on February the 16th in honor of President's Day. For St. Rose Grammar, they've got a lot of activities happening on run-through. On the 4th is a family life meeting for parents, father-daughter dance on the 6th, spaghetti dinner on the 7th, PTA executive meeting on the 10th, the pre-K snowflake ball, which I know is a huge event that they hold, is on the 20th, First Communion parent meeting on the 23rd and 24th, the Egyptian Museum on the 26th, and report cards and a bake sale on the 27th. Want to also thank DPW, as we've been talking about the storm and clearing the streets, and I was honored to ride in one of the plow trucks. They didn't let me ride it, but I went in for almost 2 hours. My body still hurts from it, but it was just a tremendous job. I rode with John McGuire. I know everything about him now. If you have any questions about John, his family, his kids.
Did he stop to breathe?
But it was really interesting to see not only how many times they,
No, he just talked, right?
but the number of times they go up and down the streets, the concern with him going back to make sure it's clear, the communication between the other guys and what they're doing that night, it was really fascinating, to be honest. And like I said, my daughter couldn't believe how great our town was compared to some of the ones that we drove through the day after. Last but not least, I've been honored to work with Claire Dykey on Paint the Town Pink, which is the month of May. I am a breast cancer survivor, and very proud to say that. And we're working with Lake Como and Belmar Cares. Kyle's a member. Belmar Cares is a very small group that Claire started in 2010. We have a small group. Unfortunately, we do lose people year to year because of the disease. But we are working, so we paint the town pink. We want to do everything from bows to painting the line down the street. If you have any ideas how we can make it pinker, let us know. And I'll be working with Mike Campbell and Holly. So, thank you.
Thank you. I do want to mention, though, that the letter we received was congratulating and thanking our police department for an outstanding job. Actually came from a state trooper who lives here in Belmar. So it's always nice to get compliments like that on our police department. So, Chief, please tell the officers and management staff that they're doing a great job. That's all for me. Next is resolutions. So we're going to have a public session on the resolution calendar. Anyone have a comment, question on the resolution calendar, please raise your hand. We can call on and come to the microphone. Yes, sir.
Chief Craver, 4th Avenue. I have a question or two about a resolution that's on the consent agenda. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Resolution change order number 1 for improvements to Silver Lake.
Yes.
Can somebody just give us an update as to what that is?
It's called a negative change order. It's a decrease from what was originally awarded.
So we saved $75,000.
Correct.
For work that wasn't done, or?
It's work we basically deleted out of the contract.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, questions, I'll make a motion to close the public portion of the resolution calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, we have one resolution that's not on the consent agenda. Is that because the premises is the Belmar Fishing Club?
Well, we pulled it out of an abundance of caution. I just wanted to make sure nobody had any conflicts that they needed to disclose. The applicants on this application are the following: Jersey Shore Dream Center, Catholic Charities, Musicians on a Mission, and the Irish Festival. The locations are various places within Belmar, including the Belmar Fishing Club and the Belmar Arts Council. And I'll defer to our attorney, but the premise, membership in a premise is not a conflict. I think it's the applicant, it's membership in an applicant that would be the conflict. And I wasn't sure if anybody here was a member of those groups.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
So in other words, Jennifer Nicolay is a member of the Belmar Fishing Club
True.
and the Arts Council, but neither one of them are an applicant on the resolution. They just happen to be the premises where the applicant is going to be having a legalized game of chance.
Correct.
So it's your legal opinion that she doesn't have a conflict of interest. Correct. Very controversial. All right, so I'll make a motion to move the resolution making findings and determinations of legalized game of chance.
Second?
Councilwoman Keown Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Goodwin?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicholas?
Yes.
Mayor Becker?
Yes, and I will also move the resolution, the consent agenda.
Councilwoman Keown Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Goodwin?
I just have a question on the permit parking at 700 block of 15th Avenue. Is there a fee for the permit?
No. This is a pretty small street, just off Main Street. between Main and Railroad, where we have a few houses that don't have driveways.
Right, right.
So they requested, to have a space, and thought it'd be fair to give them a space on the street. But there's no cost.
There's no cost to it. Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes. Next, our ordinance calendar. Ordinance 2015-01 is first reading introduction. I'll offer for introduction, ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 25, taxi cabs.
Councilwoman Keelan Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Goodwin?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes. Next, ordinance 2015-11 is first reading introduction, ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 34, special improvement district, revising ordinance of the Borough of Belmar and Monmouth County, New Jersey. I'll offer for first reading.
Second?
Councilwoman Keelan Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Goodwin?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes. Next is second reading and public hearing. This is ordinance 2015-04. Any public comments, questions on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Next, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2015-04.
Second.
Councilwoman Keelan Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Goodwin?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes. Next, ordinance 2015-05, which is open for public hearing. Any public comments, questions on this ordinance? Yes, sir.
Gene Kramer, Fourth Avenue. Picked up a copy of the proposed ordinance tonight, and on the last page here, it makes reference, if you would, unlawful practices for towing companies. And then it goes on to say, the act prohibits towing companies from the following. And then the next section below, vehicle storage. It says, the act requires that after a vehicle is towed, and so on. What is the act? I couldn't find anywhere in the document. Apparently this is referring to state statute that was passed by the legislature perhaps. They usually refer to an act. What is the act?
Ed, do you want to tell them what the act is?
I don't know. As I sit here, I don't know what the ordinance means by the act. I mean, there's numerous state statutes which deal with towing and that sort of thing, but which one is referred to in this ordinance right now, I'm not sure. I can find out, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is, right now it's a phantom act. Maybe this isn't ready for show time. Until next.
If I could offer, I believe that the language actually, I think it should say the ordinance prohibits instead of the act. I think it was probably language that we borrowed from the best practice list and said act and we meant ordinance.
Okay. So can we, this is the second reading, can we amend this ordinance and strike the words the act and put in this ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a motion to strike the word the act, both under unlawful practices of towing companies and under vehicle storage, and replace it with this ordinance.
Councilman Keelan Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Goodwin?
I just interpret the act as what the bold print says above it. Instead of saying the act, it means the unlawful practices for towing companies, prohibits towing companies from the following. I think it's simple to read, but I don't have any problem with that, the act. Yes. Now.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
I read it as. Yes.
Just here so I don't get fined, I read it, yes. So now, I'll close the public portion on ordinance 2015-05 and offer for adoption.
Second.
Councilwoman Carol Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Belmar?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darty?
Yes. Next is ordinance 15-06. The one thing I'd like to point out for council members, I'm sure you've read this, but just to highlight, under section 1, 26-7.14, smoke emission, we did modify that to make it a little more specific. So now it reads, it shall be unlawful in any residential zone to make, maintain, or suffer to permit any fire burning which shall emit smoke causing or producing noxious or objectionable odors, such as materials other than non-treated wood or fire logs or which is i.e. door flame. So, talking with our code enforcement, the genesis of this language was people in the summer who decided to burn rubber. They were burning rubber and plastic. And at the time, we didn't have any ordinance that prohibited people from burning
Why
rubber
would they
and
do
plastic.
that?
They like the smell. We didn't say they were the smartest people, but
Burn rubber with a car.
you want to that. That was a government joke right there, you know that, right?
I'm proud of her.
So after just highlighting that for council members, I'd like to open this up for public hearing. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2015-06.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. I'd like to offer for adoption 2015-06.
Second. Councilwoman Carol Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Belmar?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darty?
Yes. Next, ordinance 2015-07. This is open for public hearing. Any comments, questions on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I'll make a motion to offer and move for adoption, ordinance 2015-07.
Second?
Councilwoman Carol Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Belmar?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darty?
Yes. Next is ordinance, a lot of ordinances. Ordinance 2015-08. This is open for public hearing as well. If anyone has comments, questions? I don't see any, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2015-08.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to move, I'll offer and move for adoption ordinance 2015-08.
Second.
Councilwoman Carol Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Belmar?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
You know, I had a conversation with the borough clerk. I wondered why we even have anything to say about filming anywhere. And I was not aware that our current ordinance, without this language in it, you could not be permitted to make a movie or make any kind of film in a licensed establishment in town. At some point in the future, I would really like to revisit that original ordinance and see, because I just don't see where any government entity should really be having anything to say. If somebody wants to make a movie, as long as they're not making a fuss, I don't see why we should have anything to say about it. So yes, my vote is yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darty?
Yes. Next is ordinance 2015-09. This is open for a public hearing as well. Public comments, questions on this ordinance? I don't see any, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2015-09.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I will offer and move for adoption ordinance 2015-09.
Councilwoman Carol Blackburn?
Yes.
Councilman Belmar?
Yes.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Nicolay?
Yes.
Mayor Darty?
Yes, that takes care of our ordinance calendar.
Could I just,
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you. This is a very healthy ordinance calendar, and as I mentioned in the last meeting, this is the result of a practice we have here to learn from the season. The team sits around and workshops these issues and presents these for your consideration. So I want to thank you for supporting the team and for helping us close the loop and getting ready for the next season. Thank you.
No problem. If you have this many ordinances on next time, though, you're fine. Let's open the public session. Any comments, questions, things like that? Everyone gets 5 minutes. Please raise your hand. Wait to be called on. Come to the microphone. Say your name and address for the record. And then start away. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to read one tonight for some reason. I had about the filming, I had similar to Tom, when I read that, it seemed kind of funny. Does Google need a filming permit to take pictures and films of our town? I mean, hey, you can do a virtual ride around Belmar by going to Google Maps, seeing right into people's windows, right down the street. Look up the sky down,
That's
so on.
concerning.
I really don't see how trying to regulate the film. Nobody uses film, by the way. I don't get the purchase films in Belmar. This seems to be so archaic, and people now wearing webcams, having them in their cars and so on. Where does it end? We also do have an ordinance here in town that you can't take pictures of children on the beach without the permission of their parents. You may want to look into some of this, and I think, I think I mentioned the last meeting, and now the proliferation of these drones. This is going to be stuff all over the place. It was a big concern at the Super Bowl. In fact, they just decided, I guess, at the last minute to open the roof. They were concerned that drones were going to, if the stadium was open, they were going to come in and start taking pictures of people and perhaps circumventing the major networks. So I think the business of trying to regulate filming or television or so on, this might be something that it's already gone past us now. You can't regulate it. Unless, of course, it's violating some other ordinance in the town. That's what I have to say about that.
And just so we're clear, this ordinance is more of a deregulation
Yeah, absolutely.
from what was there before. Just so you understand.
We may want to just strike film. It just doesn't, it's not relevant anymore. The other thing about the sidewalks, I think this is kind of interesting. If you just look back about the history of Belmar, how did the sidewalks get there? By the way, there is no requirement in this town to install sidewalks. Just in December, our planning board approved a subdivision on First Avenue and A. Well, A Street there has no sidewalk, and the planning board did not require any sidewalk. Councilwoman Blackburn, you don't have sidewalks, do you?
No, not
Nobody on your street does. North end of Inlet Terrace, perhaps some of the more scenic vistas of the river. There is no sidewalk on the north end of Inlet Terrace. No place to walk to. 300 A Street, 300 First Avenue, no sidewalk. I guess I find historically the sidewalks were installed by the property owners themselves. There may be some exceptions to that on Main Street that were municipal-sponsored sidewalk projects. But all the other sidewalks in town were done by individual property owners. Just like some houses had hitches out in front for horses, they installed it themselves for their own convenience and adornment of their own property. I guess what the problem is nowadays, in our litigious society, especially in a town that wants to, that we're going to encourage people to come here, drink beer, and then stumble down the street, is that they sue you. Okay, there's liability. Inasmuch as there's no requirement to install a sidewalk, and by the way, I have over 275 feet of sidewalk, and I do try to maintain it. I was out there today shoveling. The town is quick, and let me just say that, quick to pass regulations about how you have to keep it. But if there was no requirement for it in the first place, it's kind of contradictory. People took their own money and installed sidewalks where it's not required. Actually, my recommendation to people is going to continue down that path. Have the sidewalk removed. Take it out. Put some topsoil down, plant seed. There's no requirement for a sign.
Thank you.
Yeah, what are we doing with that insurance?
That's 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
She can go first.
Oh, okay.
Joan Corralo, A Street. With regards to last week's snowstorm, Public Works, I had occasions that I had to call a little problem with the plowing. And of course, they came and they rectified, no problem. But I just want you to know that when I was telling my son the story, he said to me how fortunate I am that I live in a town where I can make a telephone call to the Public Works Department and they're going to come. And I think that, you know, I really thought about that and I thought that was thing number one. We're very fortunate that they do respond.
Thank you.
And so does our police. But anyway, on that note, also the reverse 911 calls, which we all appreciate. I would like to know the desk at the Belmar Inn. Do they get that call? Can you tell if they're on?
I can find it.
Because they don't move their cars. You know, and I mean, 12th Avenue is a mess, and most of those cars are from the hotel. They pull in, and then when you got the call where it says, go knock on your neighbor's door, that wasn't gonna happen. I wasn't going across the street, and would you please move your cars? So I was thinking maybe somebody could have stopped, like, from the police department or something, because they do have a driveway, and across the street are all empty, you know, driveways from the rentals. So there are places for those cars, but maybe you could clear 10 cars right off the street, because that can't be any fun on that lot. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, Tommy, why is...
Joan, just address the mayor and council.
Matt, why is the traffic light on the corner of 12th and Main going east and west so long? The red light by the school, it's so long.
So it's fifth.
The timing on it, it's got to be the longest, you could read the newspaper.
We remember, it's not a town road, so we don't control traffic lights.
We can't regulate that at all?
No, but we could ask them to change it, but I would say it's by a school, so that may be why it's a longer lane. I'm just asking. But we can find out for you.
It really is, it's just like way out of whack.
Belmar, kind of an odd thing, but there is no traffic light in Belmar that's on a Belmar street. They're either on county or state roads.
All right, thank you.
Oh. That's fine.
Dave Shack, 302 C Street. Just a couple of notes here. I don't think people should get tickets for it, but maybe you could just make people aware that when they shovel their sidewalk, if they live on a corner, I noticed walking around, a lot of people just follow the curve around the corner, but if you're walking straight down the road, you can't get to the street, to cross the street. And I see a lot of people with corner properties just go around the corner, and then you have to climb over this mountain of snow if you just want to walk down the street. So, you know, part of the responsibility when you're on a corner is to dig out access to the street so you can walk down the street and not have to just go in circles. Tom, thank you for bringing up this filming law. I don't know, you may not know that that was actually put in effect in response to Jersey Shore, because they didn't want them doing it here, you know. And it seemed to me kind of targeted at the time, which isn't really a good thing to do, but make a law in response to one particular organization or person. But this ordinance that passed tonight is not a deregulation. All it does is put discretion in the hands of the government, who it's enforced against and who it's not. And to me, that's an increase in government power, not a decrease. So I definitely oppose that, and I would like that ordinance to just be scrapped. I don't really think we need it. You know, there's already laws against creating a public nuisance or a public disturbance that I think would cover any kind of problem that we have with that. How much time do I have left, Matt?
3 minutes.
Okay.
10 seconds.
We should put a, you know, really, if we're gonna go down that road, you know. This, extension of the Seaport, zone, maybe all the way down Main Street instead of ending at 8th, would that, entail an extension of the jurisdiction of redevelopment law on the redevelopment? So the, you know, provisions of redevelopment law which grant additional, you know, powers to the municipal government, that's something that would be very important to know.
The answer is yes, but you remember the two things that aren't included. One is there's no master redeveloper, and two, there's no use of eminent domain. So, you know, it would allow things like tax abatements. It would allow things that right now, if you want to redevelop your property, you're not eligible for it unless you're north of 8th Avenue. So it expands what people are eligible north of 8th Avenue all the way for the rest of town as well.
Okay, if we wanted to do any development on government-owned property, would it relieve the council of the responsibility to put things out to public bid, like what we're doing with the marina? You know, that sort of increase in government power, or?
Well, the marina
you know,
was an RFP. Then it was a negotiated process. So would it allow that? Yeah, it would allow that.
It would allow that, so, you know, that's, so I think we need to be aware of all the ramifications of extending the redevelopment zone. Lastly, you know, well, two more things. Real quick, number one, are we gonna look at, like, at this point of, let me get to the second thing first, because I'm running out of time here. When you hold someone to 5 minutes, and I'm okay with that, because everybody wants to have a chance to talk, and I don't think people should be up here making 20-minute long speeches and such, while other people are waiting to talk. But when the meeting's over, and nobody has their hands up, everybody's had their say, but maybe somebody wasn't able to finish what they wanted to say in 5 minutes. I think Robert's rules, you know, stipulate that they can have a second trip to the mic. Isn't that true?
I don't have to look it up.
Well, if you're not going to allow it, I think you should put that into code. So again, so it's the same for everybody. You know.
It is the same for everybody. Get 5 minutes, and that's it.
That's it. No second trips for anybody ever, right? That's going to be the rule, right?
Well, I mean, that is the rule.
That is the rule.
Okay, that will be the rule. Okay.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, one more thing. The public safety building at 10th Avenue. Why don't we start talking about, you know, getting started on that, right? Why don't we build that?
You know, we've taken suggestions in on the website. People talk to me about it. We're, you know, still formulating a plan of what we're going to do with the pavilions.
Well, 10th Avenue I think would be approved pretty quickly. I don't think there'd be a lot of resistance, you know, as long as the plan that was there was good enough, you know, and was really tailored that there was a lot of people had disagreement with. But you know, this public safety building, I think we should, you know, bring that back and look into getting started on that. And that's what I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark Levis, 904 13th Ave. I just want to say it's a real good idea what you're doing with the sidewalks and the curbs, and where do I sign up for it? I think there's economies of scale, and you know, when I make my sidewalk and my curb appeal look better, it makes my neighbor's value go up for their house. And the same is said if they do it for their house. So I think it's a real good idea, you know, to benefit everyone in the whole town. So is there going to be like a website we can sign up for?
You want to sort of explain, that's a good question, because we haven't gone out and assessed everything yet, but there are people who want to be a part of it even before being you know, before our code enforcement looks at it. So how would they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, what I encourage in advance of announcing the official program, what I would encourage residents to contact me. You can send us an email either through info@belmar.com, to help in this team. We're going to be doing a mixture approach from an official assessment using surveyors to people who want to self-assess. We'll have forms online, you can print them, do a little checklist, and send them into the borough. So we're going to have a couple of different angles that people can use. I'll make sure you get that information as soon as we're ready to go.
Cool. I also think the idea for issuing tickets or towing vehicles when, when there's a major snowstorm, I grew up in a town that did that. And I messed up once and got my car towed, but it was better for everyone because the streets were clear the next day. And it was a lot easier. So it's not something that's new when the first ones to think of it, but I think it's a really good idea to follow up on.
Thank
Thank you.
Sorry, will the people call up have the option of either cement, brick, slate? I mean, are we gonna require people to put cement sidewalks in?
That's a good question. I would say we talk to the contractors and see how we would bid it out, right? Because the cheapest, just guessing, is poured concrete. Well, let's say you have slate, and it's like Tim said, it's still solid. The problem is it's up and down, so like you have a 3-inch gap. It may be less expensive for that person to get someone to come in, take the slate out, level everything, and put the slate back, right? Or to do with bricks. Or that person may say, you know what, it happens to me every couple of years, I'm done with this, just give me concrete. I'm just guessing that when we talk to contractors, to keep it as inexpensive as possible, my guess is it's just gonna be poured concrete. So if you have slate and you wanna keep it,
You do it yourself.
you may end up having to do it yourself, whereas if you want us to come in and do it the cheapest possible price, so you may say, all right, well, let me see how much it costs to get my slate, take it out, level, put back, versus the town coming in doing concrete, and maybe you may compare the two and say, you know what, it's cheaper to do a slate, or it's cheaper to do concrete.
Or they give pricing for the various materials. And I was thinking, how can we get those prices until we know exactly how many people are gonna opt in? Because that's certainly gonna determine.
We're trying to get the best price, right? So if we say there's 1,000 sidewalks, and we say they're all gonna be poured concrete, we'll get a better price. And we say 1,000 sidewalks, some will be poured concrete, some will be pavers, some will, well, which one's
Maybe
gonna be?
when people apply, they say this is what.
True. So, and believe me, there's a lot of room for input from council on this as we structure, as we go through the program and structure the bid. You're gonna have opportunities to put parameters on the bid. My impression from the feedback I've heard from you, from all of you talking, conversations we've had, is the focus is on making accessible and safe sidewalks and making that affordable to the general population. My feeling is the base bid is going to be for a certain set quantity of concrete. That unit cost would be made available to residents. That would be based on our overall assessment of individuals who disclosed and our best guess of where our assessment takes us. So really what we're looking is a bidded unit cost that we would make available. Now, we could structure it where we ask contractors to give us their best bid for add-on costs for specialty sidewalks or slate. Council, you can decide if you want it to be that tailored, or you could decide that this bid is for concrete, and if homeowners want to do something additional, it could be on them. We have options, and as we get further along in our assessment and starting to articulate the bid specs, you'll have those choices.
Yeah, I'm just guessing, I'm guessing if you have slate, maybe you want to keep it, but if you don't have slate, can't imagine anyone's putting in a new slate.
Yeah.
And that's expensive. Jeez, that's really
Keeping the
expensive.
slate depends on why if you've got a tree problem on top of that, you can't just put the slate back down.
You have to figure out how you go around.
You're gonna have to figure out how you're gonna go around, and that's way harder with the slate. I mean, if the slate's just moved a little bit, and it's just a matter of pulling up, level it, put it back down, I would think that's probably the cheapest thing.
And then there's sidewalks with,
But how often does that happen?
with bigger bricks and some sidewalks with smaller bricks. So the first house we owned was on 3rd Ave, and it was all brick in the front sidewalk, and it was a mess.
Yeah.
Our insurance company said, you have to fix it. So we looked at either getting poured concrete or just having someone fix it. It was cheaper for us to just have someone fix it, but that was because we were looking for poured concrete for one house.
Also, if somebody has brick or slate, once everything's fixed, it has to be the same. If your neighbors have poured concrete, it has to be level
guessing, but it seems like most new construction, I know Ted talked about one of the first, but most new construction in town is off of Main Street, foot concrete, you know.
Slate's old fashioned, beautiful, but it's old fashioned.
I'm bringing it down.
Kyle Rizzadella, 14th Avenue, Belmar. First, I have to commend definitely the borough for all the plowing and the excellent job they did on our street. And the best thing you did was have everybody get their cars off the road, because it was one of the first few times that you saw no cars on our street. It was great. And the people that don't have the code red that are on that list, we went and we called each other, knocked on doors, and there was one house we knew that's not the one directly across from me, but the one next to that is empty. We park in his driveway. I called him to let him know who was in there. So we all worked together on our street, which was great. And even today, I made sure that I made phone calls again and said, don't forget, you gotta get those sidewalks clear. So where there are residents, the sidewalks on our block are clear. However, there's the house across the street from me, the sidewalk's not clear. The house on the corner, which is up for sale, and there's a new realtor on it, that's a corner property, that those sidewalks aren't clear. And then the house on K Street, behind that, the big gray one, those sidewalks aren't clear. So you can put fines places, you can put notes places, and there's nobody there.
Well, I think a decent amount of the 71 tickets that were issued went to property owners that don't live here. So it's not as if we left a ticket at the house.
No.
We mail it to
We
their.
mail it to the address on it.
Also, my husband works up at Red Bank up at Riverview Hospital, and it took him over an hour to get home because of the roads. And he said, it was great coming into Belmar, I could drive here. He thought that was a great idea, that everything was cleared up in the town, and
Yep.
so he thought that was great, that once he got over the bridge and into Belmar, he could drive.
Excellent.
But yet, he said all the way home from Red Bank, it took him over an hour to get there. I can remember going back in time, there used to be paid parking on the west side of Ocean Avenue. I remember meters when, not that long ago, but I do remember pay meters being there. It would probably make up for the spots that we lost. Not everybody's crazy about that, but I think it's not a bad idea. There's a water drainage problem on our block. The neighbor, he's out of town and asked me to mention, he's at 106 14th. And he lives in the back, but he owns that whole property. He said he contacted you in reference to the water problem on our street. The water has been sitting there for months. Every time it rains, the water sits from 1006 all the way to K Street on that side of the street, and now it's doing it on our side. And my driveway, my next door neighbor's not driveway, it's a double driveway. At the bottom, all that blacktop is now sinking. So now when we pull in and out of the driveway, it's bottoming out constantly because the blacktop is sinking. Nothing can be done now because it's winter time, it's snowplow season, I can understand. That's something I think really needs to be looked into before it gets worse, before any other problems.
Put that on our DPW's
Right.
radar.
I'm not sure when is a good time to discuss this with you. I'm just going to mention it now, and then you can tell me when, where, and when to further continue this conversation. In reference to, I went on the website today. It's the Belmar website about the fundraisers that are going on for the two families that are in town. And I just have a couple quick little comment questions.
Sure.
It was posted right on, so I'm not getting this information out of the sky. $8,000 they received from FEMA, $93,000 was from Selective Flood Insurance, they only received $30,000 of it. $150 from RREM, they only received $75. $30,000 from ICC, they only received $15, and $20,000 for the contents of the house from the flood. So they have received $148,000. What I'm looking at across the street from me did not cost $148,000. So I'm not against the fundraiser. I just want to know, first, is any of the fundraisers for either one of these families, is it going to cost taxpayers at all? That's my first question. And the other is, if they received all this money, and I do know that there are some of the funds are being held, but if the house needs to be finished, why are these accounts not forwarding that money to the builder to get that building finished? And if they do reach the goal and get the amount of money that we're driving for to finish this, I'm just talking about the property across from me right now. If we get the goal of getting that amount of money to finish that home, all this other money is gonna be released. Where's that money gonna go?
Right. The information we received from them, we put up on the website.
I mean, I know them personally, so.
Well, I know it's
Right.
kind of odd, they live across the street from you. I mean,
Well-
if you really want the answers to this stuff, I would tell you to go walk across the street towards the neighbor. But we.
No, the answers they give me is I don't know. Why are the banks holding money? I don't know. How come they won't release it to you? I don't know.
Right.
So those are the answers that I'm getting.
Well, then I guess you could contact the bank, because the same answer as we get, we asked the families. I mean, the goal here is to get the families back in their
Oh,
houses.
oh, definitely. I'm all for that.
And I mentioned before that there's money sitting in the Bank of America account that will not be released until they're further along to ensure that they can be completed. That was money put in there from the insurance company. So what's on the website is accurate.
Right, no, I'm not saying it's not
No,
accurate. I'm just questioning, why is it, I know you're not the bank, but they could see, like, it's not like this is something funny that they just feel like building a house for the heck of it.
Right, well, Kyle, I would tell you, we could go to the bank, we could yell at them, we could yell at the state, we could jump up and down, we could hold signs, or we could get them back home. So, my goal is to get them back home.
Okay, so that,
And I don't want to cut you off, but that is your 5 minutes as well. And the second thing, and this is important, which I didn't think to mention, but this is not going to cost any taxpayer dollars.
okay, I just wanted to know. I just wanted to know that. Okay, all right, I was just kind of curious, like, once the
Understand.
house is done and all that money is released, where's it going?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Louis Plato, Dina Manor Apartments, 16th Avenue. 3 minutes. I just want to add my congratulations and to the DPW for a great job that was done for the past couple storms and all the past couple of years. They do a great job. Also, just 2 quick asides. As far as the sidewalks go, there's a lot of new technologies out there, materials technologies out there available that we should be looking into. We don't have to limit ourselves to just slate, cement, things like that. I know in Southern California that some towns have utilized this new sidewalk technology, which allows you to lay it out and periodically in the future can literally lift it back up, level it underneath, and then lay it back down again. It's actually almost, it's like it doesn't, it really cuts back on the expenses of replacement over time. And it's good if in consideration of different options, let's make sure that we don't overlook these new technologies, which could be a great boom for our community as well. So this way it might address some of the issues that we're talking about with the tree stumps and all this other stuff. And lastly, one reason why someone might burn plastic. Okay. Oddly enough.
Guilty
This is something something I learned in my little business right there. Is that some guys, what they do is they collect scrap wire, when they cut the power cords off televisions and off other electronics, they're going to try and recycle the wire. They actually get, when you take copper insulated wire to the scrapyard, you get paid money for it by the pound. Copper insulated wire is about 25 cents a pound when you bring it, and sometimes even more for the heavier stuff. Some people, instead of taking the time, if you strip the wire, it's $2.20 a pound for the bare bright copper. So a lot of people, what they do is they try to strip the wire, the plastic, off the wire so they get the wire. But there are some lazy heads out there that will actually put the wire in a bundle and try to burn the plastic and melt the plastic off the copper. And that results in a lot of toxic fumes, that results in a lot of things. That's why it's really illegal to do that. But I don't know if that's what the case was, that's people doing that, but that's one reason why someone could burn plastic.
Do you use a lighter or a match?
I don't. I don't. But that's all I have to say, just figured I'd share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you do the backyard.
Yes.
Seeing no other comments, questions, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, public portion adjourned.